Hello, welcome again. So this time we are going to talk about the time I spent at Adeline Software. Before I actually start, I had a lot of feedback on the previous video, on the surprisingly large number of former colleagues who commented and bringing some details and things like that. And while preparing this particular video, I found out some old photos from both Eden and Doki Denki. So before starting, I'm going to show some. So here we have a photo of Alexi, who was also working at Adeline on Doki Denki, who's busy probably testing Verali. So this is at Eden. Then I was mentioning that there was a hunt for programmers at the volcanic party. So I found some photos, so that's me, and that's members of Illuvision at the time, with Denise, the lead runner from Explore. Same thing. So this is actually Frédéric G, who was working later with me at Eden on Verali. For some reason they were also at the same place, so it looks like everybody decided to look for talents, and they were looking at what I was doing on the at the demo party. So that's my thing. We actually also had one of the artists of Illuvision, François, who's now working, I think, at Arcane Studio, who entered the 3D rendering compo with something he modelized with triangles, the face of a girl, and then some general view of the place, so we can see all the CRT screens and things like that. Good old towers. So there we go, we're done with that. We can start with Adeline Software. So I was hired at Adeline in 1995. So I found my letter of hiring. Confirmation of hiring, Monsieur Michael Pointier. I confirm by the President that you're hired as a programmer. Your contract will be 1 year with a 3 months trial, starting on January 2, 1995, with a monthly salary of 9,000 francs per month. Please get my blah blah regards. Signed, Frédéric Renal, director. So Renal is the programmer who created Alone in the Dark, the very first one, and is also known for those game called Popcorn, where he was actually the artist. He also did some Amiga port of a weird game in 3D, which was supposed to trigger your alpha. Well, actually, that was the name, Alpha Waves. And then got the contract thing, and we were actually not working for Adeline. We were working through Delphine Software, so it was a bit complicated. The whole Delphine thing could be having some its own show, most probably. So the way it worked is that I've been working with Olivier, who has the business card here, for quite many years, not as a professional developer, but we are doing demos on the Atari ST, and even tried to make some games on the Atari for a company called Expose Software, created by a friend. And in '94, Olivier got hired at Adeline. And the way it happened is that I was subscribed to one of the French magazines, not Console Plus, but Tilt, and Tilt got bankrupt, and my subscription got converted to another magazine called Joystick. And there were actually some message from Adeline Software in the small advertisement asking for programmers. And me, I was busy doing my bachelor degree in computer science. I wanted to finish it, so Olivier sent his resume and he was hired. And 1 year later, he said that Adeline was expanding, and if I was interested, I could send my resume. and I was hired, and we became basically the console development group. So as you can see, that was on our desk, not on the desk, but on the glass window. There's no one who wants to play LBA, alarm button. If you've got a bug, press the button and wait the answer. In case of emergency, stay relax and press the reset button. P6 research department, restricted area, open 7/7/24/24. And this is Twinson. I'll explain later this part. So when I arrived, there were no actual game development. Olivier had been working on Little Big Adventure on PC, and the game had been released already, and the rest of the team was switching to Little Big Adventure 2, a much bigger version of the game. And the company was wondering if it was possible to make a console version, because that's where the money was. And so that was before the PlayStation got released, so the big console of the time were the Sega 32X, and was it still the... Yeah, and still the Super Nintendo. The Nintendo 64 was not yet released. And Olivier was trying to convert the rendering engine, 3D rendering engine, to draw stuff on the Mega Drive, which is not really designed for that. It's old school sprites console. But he managed to do a triangle rendering engine, and he had Twinson, the main hero, rendered on the Mega Drive with a 32X adapter. But it became clear that there would be not enough CPU or memory to get the whole game, so it was decided to actually try to see the next-gen console, and we were asked to review 3 consoles. The PlayStation 1, the Sega Saturn, and the Atari Jaguar. So through Delphine we got a dev kit for each of them, including the documentation, the hardware, and we had to do the choice. So I'm not sure how long we were given, but probably 1 or 2 weeks. And we decided ultimately on the PlayStation because of 2 things. One, the documentation was looking much better. It came in very nicely plastic binders, quality paper, glossy paper, and there was a Tyrannosaur demo that ran on the PlayStation. While on the Saturn, it looked serious, but it looked boring. It was all over the place. Some things were not translated. It was in Japanese. It was not clear in the documentation if you could display transparency or not, and if it can actually do triangles. It was very weird. On the Jaguar, let's say, it was more like the laughing stock of the thing. What we received basically looked like an Atari Jaguar who's been opened with a screwdriver and some wired, a bit like in a hacker's movie. And you were supposed to plug that on your PC. The documentation was horrible. Some of the stuff was still on floppy, not even on CD. It was ridiculous. So we decided to go with the PlayStation, and we started basically with Time Commando. So I'm not quite sure why it was Time Commando instead of porting LBA, but it's what we decided to do. So Adeline had its own software libraries. So these days people are using things like Unity, SFML, SDL, Unreal, Lumberyard, things like that. But back in the days, everybody was building their own system libraries. So that's the Adeline libraries, with how to read the keyboard, allocating memory, converting integer, loading, the famous load malloc, which we are making the artist laugh a lot. Give the file name, return a pointer, and it does all the magic inside. So we have to remember that this is 1995. That's not very recent anymore. So all that for the ini files, def files, and function to copy screens, the global variables documented, mouse handling with click position, transition to change color palettes, how to display text, clipping, block copy, loading of pictures in various formats, BMP, Amiga, Deluxe Paint, EFF, PCX, which were kind of standard at the time. And then the menu library, which was used to do all the debugging tools, dialogues, and things like that. And description of the 3D library, which was having very high level features like load object, set projection. It was not at the triangle level. And then the list of all the functions on which file it was. Honestly, considering the time, I think it was very well organized, so kudos for the team. Then there were Animate, which is what people used to make 3D models. So, first edition, October 1995. Little manual, non-exhaustive, of principal functions reserved to non-knowledgeable users. So what does Animate look like? So you have a grid that you can move up and down, and then you can connect dots, and that makes your triangles. So you can connect them on the same without moving the grid, in which case you get some oriented square perpendicular to the axis, but you can also move the grid while you're creating a polygon, so you can make triangles like that. So import of various formats. So this is a typical dialogue that you get from the lib menu I was showing before. The genius thing with the lib menu is that it worked in text mode and graphic mode, and all the reference for the position of your object, dialogues and things is in text mode unit. So you could probably make a text mode ASCII art version of Animate. The menu will just draw just fine. I think that was very smart for the time. So here you can change the light position, zooming. You can switch to real perspective or isometric mode. Converting various things, special effect, save to 3ds Max, sorry, that was not Max, 3D Studio format. Color selection with color gradient. Texture. So how to select and rotate the polygons, how to select the texture mode. Yeah, on the various constraints, how do you position a texture on, in a texture page. Red zone, which is a concept of you can repeat a pattern of smaller size. Animation with a timeline. Getting difficult to turn the pages. So here you can see Stanley with the various keyframes. On a glossary with the various file extension on what they represent. Can even start a DOS shell from the tool if you need to do something without leaving the edit mode. So I'm going to finish by Little Big Adventure because it's the PC version was the first thing we did, but the PlayStation version was the last thing we did before leaving. So, Time Commando was released on PlayStation, on PC. Manual. And one important thing is that Time Commando PlayStation is not a port of Time Commando PC. So while Little Big Adventure is a port. So what's the difference between a port and a non-port? Well, there's a difference between a big ego and some retarded business decision versus something sane. So when Olivier and myself started working on the PlayStation version of Time Commando, we were not impressed by the PC code. I'm sorry, PC programmers. We came from the demo world, and for us, code had to be running fast and smooth, and every single byte of memory had to be justified. And the PC version made us cry. I mean, it had massive, larger amount of memory, faster CPU, and it ran like crap. Retrospectively speaking, it was all because of the compatibility problem with SVGA and the fact that the compilers were running in protected mode, and so it was not really the fault of programmer. I think they did an actually good job. But back in the days, we were 25 and with big ego, so we decided to redo the code. So not all of it, but some of it. So the way Time Commando was done is that all the levels were designed with what we called plaque leaves, which were basically some rectangular thing connected in 3D, and that was a place where the player could move. And all the interactable elements, NPCs and things had to be on these places. Then we could change orientation to make it more interesting, higher, lower, and at some point we were able to edit color gradients to make things like entering shadows or getting into full light and stuff like that. And this was done by the designers, and when it was done, it was exported to 3D Studio, and then the artist will use that, import it as a ASCII format, ASC, and will make the geometry around, and they will tweak the cameras until they had a nice moving thing going around. And then that would be rendered as a series of frames saved in, I think it was in GIF, or maybe PCX. And the editing tool will then re-import these pictures, including the camera path, and with a small timeline jog, you could move in the ride backward and forward. And each of these plates had a frame number, and you could say, when you're on this plate, you should be displaying the camera movement position at 76 seconds. And that's how we were tweaking the fact that the player had to move forward or backward to go to a particular picture. And some had special locations, numbers, which say it's a picture out of the main sequence that you have to display. So we did that to do like entering inside a house or inside a bunker, and that was added towards the half of the development of the game. So that's why there are none in the first levels. So we also had some scripting language, so with a scene description and some commands. So we had labels, so that one is not actually for Time Commando, it's from 94, it's from A Little Big Adventure, but we kept some of the features. And it's full of interesting things like one if. One if is a if that's self-disable. So the check is going to be done once, and then it's never going to happen. Something for the swift, which is often used for doing things like on-off buttons that should not check if they've been pressed again. It's a switch if. You click once, it happens, and it will not happen again until you do else, and the else will not switch off until you do something else again. It was very practical for a lot of things. So I have an actual version of the Time Commando scripting system. So the other day I saw somebody doing a long run of the game, and at some point there is a level in the future when you are fighting soldiers with Kalashnikovs and tanks, and there is a dog who follows you, and he attacks other people, until at some point it attacked the player, and people did not know why. Well, it's because the dog was checked, was designed, so just a subroutine, the one when it attacks you. It checks who's hitting it. If it's an enemy, just continue, but if it happens to be Stanley, which in this particular case is a special variable called hero, then it switches to combat mode, and it does that. So, start program combat, loop, and loop. If enemy is a hero, then do something, stop following, while the enemy become, so the enemy is a hero. While the enemy is alive, if I'm not blocked, try to do some random thing. If I've been hit twice with the same type of attack, use an unblockable fury animation. If the enemy is at more than 5 meters, use a run animation. If it's 3 meters, walk. If it's 2.5, then switch to guard, and either play right hit or scratch your hair. So everything's done like that, and now on a while the dog will scratch itself sitting or show the leg if it's not actually fighting. And we have a similar thing in another level where we have 2 knights who attack you, and if you can manage to get them to hit one or the other, then they will start to hit, and then you just need to finish the last one. So I also found the synopsis of the intro sequence. And here I have the actual production elements with the details for the person who's going to convert death to 3D. And there we have the story. Time Commando synopsis sometime in the future. So let's see if I can do that. The Federation of Europe sends out a call for tenders to develop its new military training center. With its ability to recreate a wide range of combat situations, the center will be used to plunge future officers in multiple virtual worlds. Several weapons system consortiums submit projects, but the contract finally goes to the Otega Corporation, which uses its proprietary Time Blaster technology to build the Historical Tactical Center. So people, HTC means Historical Tactical Center, for the one who asked on the video. To the satisfaction of federal officials, the project is a huge success. Based on the principle of tachyon physics, Time Blaster systems generate bubbles in the microprocessor which trap and accelerate time. Because it has produced a generation of computers several million of times more powerful than today's machines, with their speed of light limitation, this technology was chosen to engineer the HTC, giving it the immense computing power needed to simulate a whole world of sensations and manage multiple situations. Sheer processing muscle combined with a vast historical database makes the HTC the most powerful computer at the time. At Otega, SAVE, Special Action for Virus Elimination Department, Technical Time Travel Adjutant Stanley Opar. So we have Stanley here, which for some reason at some point was called Stanley Maxi. In the final version it's called Stanley Opar, which is a terrible pun. So he's just starting his shift. He walks into the auto dresser in the locker room and program an off-duty, on-duty change of clothes. So normally we have that somewhere in the sequence. Yeah, so here it's not in order. So we have Stanley, he goes there, changes, and a program is planning and is going to relax. Feeling good in a crisp new action suit, he settles down at his desk and fixes on his task schedule. An empty mission list comes up on the screen. Opar plugs in a console, switches on the holo projector, and is soon absorbed in his favorite game, Alone in the Big Adventure. Yeah, you can see him playing Alone in the Big Adventure. In charge of developing the HTC Time Blaster unit, Beatty H and her team. So we have Beatty here. cheerfully making preparation for phase 4 of the project, objective to bring the system into operation for the European Army. But little to their knowledge, ex-competitor Sound Corporation has developed an intelligent, self-morphing virus to destroy the HTC in spiteful revenge for Ortega's success on soaring profits. A corporate spy infiltrates the debugging team and plants the virus. Look at the bad guy. He actually look a bit scared. Unplant the virus in the system code. The HTC is now infected and nobody suspects a thing. So here we have the intro sequence, people working, the guy takes something from his boot, nobody's looking, insert the thing, bloop, and then we have a shark. And the guy is scary, but nobody noticed anything, he's safe. The whole team is working intensely at the bank of terminals, encircling the Time Blaster central processing unit. Gripping her Sonica notepad tightly, Betty supervises the final check before completing phase 4. 3D virtual enemies generated by the HTC rotate ominously in front of the holo projectors, while lists of tactical and strategic data flicker in plasma red. Technician wearing force feedback gloves tap the air as they manipulate text and imagery in a rapid, precise, staccato dance executed before each weird soldier. An alarm splits the air, an holo message immediately comes to life at each terminal. System alert, time warp imminent, phase 4 cancelled, recommend personal evacuation. So, do we have that somewhere? Yeah, so the alert starts. Quickly recovering from surprise, Betty gives the order to de-energize the entire system. Technicians open hatches and disappear into service shaft, welded with circuitry, while others access the core of the system, desperately answering complex commands. Too late, the HTC is out of control. The time confinement bubble starts swelling, engulfing the Time Blaster processors and finally the CPU itself. Everyone freezes in wonder before the huge glowing sphere, swelling out from the center of the control room. The terminals are next to go, swallowed up by the blinding mass of light as it expands toward the holoprojectors. Trapped in their symbiotic seats, the technicians flee the room too late. They are absorbed in an ultimate throb of the sphere. Paralyzed by fear, Betty too disappears helplessly in the wall of light. And then we have the thing growing up, and Betty is out. Just as he completes the 23rd level of the game, Stanley virtual goggles go dead. He tears them off as a Class 1 alarm rings through the office. A glance at the holoprojector tells Stanley how serious the alert is. Snatching his flight case, he leaps into the emergency lift. And if you look at the video, the actual cutscene, you will see that the suit actually jumps into his hand instead of the other way around. The historical tactical center is throbbing with forensic activity as members of special security section dash about in all directions. Saved by panic, officers back out order, a corporate big shot keeping up with Stanley as they rush through the corridor brief him on the situation. The atmosphere at the door of the control room is ozone saturated. Stanley inserts his card in the locking mechanism and the door slides open. The side of the sphere has stabilized, the CPU and the peripherals have disappeared, and Stanley finds himself alone in the room. He cautiously approaches the bubble and kneels down to examine the glowing wall. On its flickering spot of light, he slowly reaches out and touches it. Never do that. It feels smooth and offers slight resistance to his touch. Suddenly, ripples form on the surface like a liquid and engulf Stanley's arm. With nothing to hold on to, he is sucked bodily into the sphere and falls endlessly through a dark tunnel. So, there's been multiple versions of this intro sequence. On the American version, so there is no voiceover in the European version, but after the American version was made, they decided that it was not clear, so they added some voiceover during the cutscene. I'm not sure that makes it any better, but at least it's explicit. So we also had some description sheets for some of the characters. So Stanley, who's the hero, the whole thing is absolutely crazy. I'm not sure who smoked what before doing it, but that one is totally crazy. That one is not much better, but he also has a description of the weapons that she has. Mercenary by test, member of the Guild of the Assassins of the Atlantic Axe by opportunity. She's a Russo-Venetian from Venus on Russian. Actually hard to speak for that much. 30 minutes, yes, too long. Again, there are also a Saturn version, so made by a Virtual Studio. We had to give them some information on how to convert the things, including the various very specific PlayStation things. The Saturn is an interesting console, but the way it was doing textures make it very, very complicated. So we also had some goodies. So this is a Time Commando clock that, if you notice, has a 3 here and a 9 there. And I tried to open it, but could not change the battery, but basically it goes back in time. And then we have this dehydrated bag of Time Commando, ready to rip, break seal, open pack, experience extra 3D motion immediately, prepare yourself for time travel. And what you have inside is basically terribly done, but actually funny postcards. So Stanley running in front of a train, and with a queen, and with a Easter Island, and here you can see that it fits perfectly inside the boat, nothing wrong there. And the reference card for the PC version. This was an alternate version for the box by Activision. In Europe, usually you find that one. And this is a panel for the PC CD-ROM version. So now we have a little big adventure. So we have the PC version, Electronic Arts CD-ROM sampler, on the PlayStation version. So here I have some magazine thing showing, talking about the game. So that one is not French. And then LBA, the French Revolution. Star Wars. So LBA got a mega hit. We are quite kind of proud of that one. It's the loading picture with the command. You will see this picture very often, but never for very long, because there are not a lot of memory on the PlayStation 1. So regarding Electronic Arts, the reason why I do have that is that Electronic Arts had a studio, but not really a studio. They were publishing on the QA center on the north of Lyon, not very far. So we had some friends here, there. And if you go to the 1994-95 EA list of games, at the end you have Little Big Adventure in their portfolio, which is nice. Which is also why it is on the CD-ROM sampler here. And these days, people are still waiting for a big game to be released called, what's the name? Star Citizen. So in this EA thingy, there is also the storyboard for the Wing Commander intro sequence, and with some funny thing, like Mr. Chris Roberts himself was born in California, grew up in Manchester, England. At the age of 13, he taught himself programming on the BBC microcomputer, a British-made machine. And 1 year later, he's already sold his first computer game. So, with other Little Big Adventure, release planned on IBM PC and CD-ROM, December 2, 1994. Delphine and Electronic Arts announced the release of the game. So that was marketing blurb to basically get the journalist on board. So yeah, I was talking about the port versus non-port. So for Time Commando, we basically rewrote a lot of the code. So the PC version and the PlayStation version are very different. Some parts are common, like the scripting system, but pretty much all the rest is different. Little Big Adventure, on the other hand, it's a code actually ported. We rewrote only what was necessary to get it run on the PlayStation. And then I have some confidential stuff. I'm not sure how many people do have that. I blurred the numbers. Basically, that's the salaries of all the employees from Adeline Software, with the number of months they were hired on each project, and at the preliminary cost for each of the projects with these people at this salary for this amount of time. And that's how it was evaluated to decide to go for a particular team on a particular game. So that would be PC team would be working on that, on PS6 team would be working on these people. So if we were doing Little Big LBA2 PS6, that would be this. The team Unreal Story, which I don't remember at all. And yeah, that was planification on the various things. I blurred the number, but if any of you are, by any of you I mean people who worked at Adeline and are in this list, on promise to not kill anyone in the management of Adeline, I may provide the original numbers. And I also do know the actual happening of the Time Commando bonus. So, I mean, it's like 25 years now, so I guess should be good to go. But yes, you shall know that there has been a Time Commando bonus, but you did not receive it. Haha. Then there is, after saying that, you could think that maybe there were no actual team spirit at Adeline, but there was. So first we had all these nice Adeline Software t-shirt. If that's not vintage, I don't know what it is. With a cute Adeline team logo on it. And an authentic legacy PlayStation 1 that the earlier developers got. I don't know how many people still have theirs, but we were kind of proud of having this. And every time somebody had a birthday, we had this kind of thing. Already 25 years, good happy birthday, I will manage, indeed, who was a technical director, probably some artist, 5 years, maybe one day you will become a graphician, so that was kind of cool. And then, as usual, the Adeline greetings, like I was showing you for the other companies. And in the spirit as well, there were, so in 96 I got a car crash. That was just in the middle of Time Commando. So that was my car before, that was my car after. Here you see Olivier. That's what happened when you go backward in a tree. And that was the seat where I was sitting. So I got kind of crushed. But there were a lot of support from the team, so I got some comic books, something like that, from the Delphine production, as you can see. Yeah. So I gave them some thanks for all the message. Thanks a lot to everybody. I really like comics in general, and I have to admit it's a very great present. Wait for me, I'm coming back as soon as I can. And indeed, I was back very, very soon after. This is very special. That's a letter from Frédéric Renal when I was at the hospital. Salut, hi Michael. So first, a very important thing, I hope you will not need the zooming light thingy for many reasons. It's very heavy, you'll see your arms, you don't see the side of the screen, yeah, so basically he gave me, just for my trip here, is Nintendo black and white Game Boy. With Zelda, Donkey Kong, and he's giving a lot of things, and he's saying, don't play this game because your heart and blood pressure is going to increase, and the doctor is going to be very annoyed. But yeah, it's late, and I wishes you plenty of things, including feeling good soon, and also honest courage and meditation. If you want, I can lend you my dictaphone so you can record a live important moment, intimate journal, or simply ideas and reflection for your game. See you soon, Fred. And as it happens, Fred's wife, Yael, had 2 CV to sell, so well, after breaking my first one, I bought that one, which I kept for about 10 years after. Later on, Adeline Software will become a no cliche and release a Toy Commander and become a studio of Sega, which is kind of funny. And here you can see them from left to right: Frédéric Rénal, Laurent Salmeron, Yael Barros, Didier Chanfray. So that's about French creators having the jackpot. And here's a bunch of things, like when we were visiting ECTS, the European Consumer Trade Show. And this, it's the Adeline spirit in a bottle. Starting by a photo of Olivier as the big boss, with Lionel looking at him like if he was a bodyguard. I added that to preserve the friendship. And so we were going regularly to ski, so that's a team, I'm not sure if it was Val Thorens or, but it was in the Alps. So people are happy, some artists, Serge, people drinking, Gigi, Ludo, a bit of everybody. I can see Ben, Little, Tac Tac, and Serge as well. And yeah, I guess that's all for Adeline. That's all for all the places I actually did work, well, except Funcom. But that will ask some more things. Yeah, I don't have any other thing to mind. Oh yeah, I wanted to explain that. So the reason for this thing, the Open 77-24-24, is that basically we were in perpetual crunch all the time. It was not really required of us, but there was only a way we could actually do the deadlines. So we will be working, going to the office pretty much every day, including Saturday and Sunday. And if at some point we'll go to, for example, a nightclub, on the way back from, we will stop at the office to check if there were no some bug report from Activision on the waiting on the fax. And sometimes that would be like at 4 a.m. And we'll see, oh damn, yeah, I know what it is. We'll boot up the computer and try to fix something, and sometime I will make a new version and send it back and go back home at 6 in the morning. So yeah, people have been complaining about crunch time in the industry. I've been there, done that. I can't do it anymore. It's not a good thing. Generally, when you hear people doing crunch, it's because management failed. People should not have to do crunch if there were no management error. Now it happened that now and then there are some totally unplanned things which were hard to plan for, and then you may have to do one evening of unplanned work, but you should not have months and months or years of crunch time. It just does not go anywhere, and it's bad. So yeah, been there, done that. Bye bye.